Podcasts proudly presents The Broadcasters Podcast, a weekly media commentary talking about traditional and digital media headlines and talking to the content creators out front and behind the scenes. Here is the king of podcasts.
I used to never be one of those people, though. I used to give out the episode number, and especially for my other podcasts, I never did that at all. But I don't know. This particular program, I feel like it is necessitated. Episode 116 of the Broadcasters Podcast is on your podcast player. Thanks for listening in. King of Podcasts here with you. Loaded show tonight. Let me get you all lined up about what's going on for this week's show and for upcoming weeks, because in the coronavirus confinement, I've had a lot of time to do some recording. So I've done that, and I was able to go and rack up 4 interviews in the last weekend that I got to go and share with you that are just fantastic. And I hope you'll go ahead and, join me for all those, because I got interviews setting up right now. I'm going to set up a few more. Probably get myself up to the summertime with new interviews here on the Broadcasters Podcast. So coming up on the program tonight, future for the Movieplex is uncertain. As the media workers are now feeling the brunt of the virus, we're seeing by way of furlough, podcasts are getting a push, and so streaming video, of course, and television as a result of the coronavirus confinement. We're going to talk all about that tonight, but we're going to go through some of the tough news, and then we're going to get some better news. And then also later on in the program, I'm going to go ahead and conclude my second part of my interview with Jared Easley. He's the co-founder and head of community and content at Podcast Movement, which unfortunately, we'll see how they're going to be able to get their show together, if they're going to be able to pull off their event coming up in August. But again, that's just so far down the line. And we're just hoping to go and get ourselves kind of, we're still managing to get through things now. For myself, I'm into the middle of my 3rd week in confinement. I know some of you are probably a little bit longer than that or close to it, but really it's been tough. Not tough really at all. I mean, I should be grateful, really, as the most part. The only thing that's been tough is the fact that I haven't been able to make more income like I normally do, or have other side hustles. So I'm going to start looking at some work at home stuff to kind of just supplement. But in the meantime, what you could really do to help me out so I can keep the money flowing in here, and I can keep things taken care of, make sure production's taken care of, and, make us all worthwhile for everybody and give back to everybody out there as well. By all means, please go ahead and look for my Amazon link. If you're going to buy Amazon, remember this in your head and tell the people to go ahead and give this URL out. KingofAmazon.com. Okay, just like King of Podcasts, think of KingofAmazon.com. I go there, and let me tell you my setup. This is really what works for me. And this is not for everybody, but look, because Amazon consumes a lot of what I do. I got an Amazon tab sitting on my bedroom nightstand. Okay, I have Amazon Fire Stick on my smart TV. I have Audible in my phone or wherever else I want to go and listen to Audible when I want. And also, because of the Amazon Fire Stick, I have Amazon Prime. So Amazon Video is available and Amazon Music is available. So I have all that right there for me. And then what I also have is my Amazon Prime Visa credit card. So with that, I make, for any Amazon purchases, I make 5% cash back, and then 2% for any gas and groceries. Well, at the moment, I'm only making money off of what I make off of Amazon. But what's happening is, I've been able to rack up so many points and so many Amazon reward dollars that I have a reservoir, a little treasure chest that I need. When I need to go and buy stuff from Amazon, all I have to do is just go ahead and just tap into it. And I've been tapping into it to buy whatever. And at the moment, at KingofAmazon.com, Amazon, if you will, they have toilet paper. They have hand sanitizer. If you're looking for it in bulk, by all means, to your heart's content, go buy away. If you want to go buy books, you want to go ahead and watch TV, sign up for Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime has so many great TV shows. I mean, I haven't told you, in my family's household, I'll tell you, my brother is really big into Bosch. My parents are watching Goliath. They've watched Jack Ryan. I'm interested in trying to watch a few other shows on there, but it's going to make the time to do it outside of podcasts. But I'm looking at so much that's out there. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel looks interesting. Man in the High Castle. There's a lot. They also got the new Amazon series with Al Pacino, and I can't think of the name of it right now. It's in Avengers. Isn't that what it is? Not Avengers. What is the name of that again? Hunters. Why? How did I end up doing that? I don't know why. But anyways, that's what I said. Hunters, which is the newest show from Al Pacino and all the folks there at Amazon. So look for that right now. Go get your Amazon on, okay? They're the ones that are delivering right now. They have stuff on Prime. They have stuff available same day or second day delivery, and it's good. I'm telling you, it's like AAA. If you buy an Amazon subscription, you're going to make your money back on it. You're going to make your money back and more. It's that good. There's so much to be had. Get your hands on it. If you want to get for Audible, you can go buy books on Audible right now, or you can go ahead and buy, books on Kindle, or buy books that you want to just read in the house. By all means, do it. At the moment, I am listening on Audible to a new book. Not a new book, but it's the latest book I'm listening to now is by Selwyn Robb. Selwynraab. Selwyn Robb. Now, this guy is interesting because he is the same guy that has been writing for the New York Times. He wrote for the New York Times for almost 50 years going back as a journalist. Wrote about the mob. Wrote a lot about organized crime, the mafia, La Cosa Nostra, and La Capo de Tutti Capo, right? The boss of bosses, right? All this kind of stuff. The book is called Five Families. It's the book of all the stories of the five families, the five mafia families that ran New York City for decades. And that's what's really interesting. And I'm really including that book. It's 33 hours of that book, or 811 pages. It is like War and Peace long, but it's a great book. I would highly recommend it. Five Families. Like I tell myself when I listen to the book and I stop listening to it, I'll just say to myself, it's like an old miniseries I'd watch on CBS, And now CBS returns with a miniseries, Five Families. I can just imagine that going on in my head. And I've said it to myself too, I feel like that's what I'm listening to because the story is just so intense and intricate and detailed, and it's just a very good story. The whole thing is really fantastic. So anyway, kingofamazon.com, because when you go ahead and buy through Amazon through that link, kingofamazon.com, you are helping out the show. You're helping me out because I'm making a sale. I'm making a commission off what you buy. And that's what I hope you'll go and consider doing for me here on the program. Let's get started with the movies, because yours truly is really concerned if the movies are going to be coming back. Well, Deadline is reaching out and giving us information from a study that came out talking about how moviegoers are highly likely to return to theaters upon reopening, but more than half will wait a bit, according to this study. So here's what's going on. Analytics company EDO, they put out a survey called Social Distancing Moviegoing and TV Habits Report. Between March 24th and 28th, they polled 6,800 respondents nationwide about their at-home viewing habits during this quarantine time, as well as their readiness to return to the cinema. And in the major finding of this, it says that a majority of moviegoers definitely plan to head back to the movie theaters once COVID-19 quells. However, 56% will take their time. Interesting. So, and promising news for exhibitors and studios, more than 70% of those polled indicated they would be likely to return to theaters once they reopen, with a substantial 45% saying they were highly likely. Amen. My hands up. I would have said that too. So there you go. Actually, another story just going to pull up there in a little bit. I'm going to pull that up in a little bit because Paramount actually just came out not too long ago with the latest news about their what was coming up with their movies, as we've been hearing different movie companies telling us when their movies are going to be pushed back for. So we're going to learn about that in a minute. Meantime, let me get back to the story. At the same time, 45% combined said they would come back very soon, broken down as 20% returning immediately, 25% a few days later. However, 45% of the respondents said they would wait a few weeks to head back to the cinema once they reopened, with 11% of respondents saying they'd wait several months. So really, I think people are just ready to go and come on back. They're going to want to go back and get themselves back into watching movies like they normally do. I think people do miss out on doing that. And I don't know if concerts are going to get back to that point, but we can talk about that. We'll see what's going to come out. Overall, since movie theaters closed, about 75% of those in the study said they were likely to purchase movies on demand. So many studios had no choice but to fast-track their current theatrical titles into the home window. Movies like Onward, Sonic the Hedgehog, Invisible Man, Bloodshot, The Hunt, and more. And here's the thing. Over Easter weekend, Universal is going to make Trolls World Tour available for 48-hour rental at $19.99. Now, here's the thing. I it's a little more convenient to go ahead and do the movies now because of the fact that if you want to order a movie new, you do not have to go to pay-per-view to go and watch it. You don't have to do it through your cable service. The one thing is now you have other places that will go ahead and let you order it. Like right now, if I want to go on Amazon Prime, Amazon Video has these movies available for release now, and I can buy them. And it'll just go right to my Amazon account, and I can do that. But I don't feel like paying $20. And I understand more people want to watch it, but for me, I'm a solo person watching the movies because I'm the one that wants to watch it. And, you know, now I'm back to where I was before because when I had my Regal Unlimited Pass, I would go and watch movies like Bloodshot or Bloodshot or The Hunt. I watched those 3 weeks ago, and, you know, I probably wouldn't have paid for Bloodshot. I probably would have paid for The Hunt, and that was it. But for the most part, those are movies that, like, it was easy to go and make the decision to go and buy a movie. But when you're back to this and you've been on a limited plan, if you're on a subscription plan, some of you moviegoers know what I'm talking about. You don't want to go ahead and pay full price again. So why? And that's the whole thing. And the problem is the subscription plans, even though they're forgiven right now and I'm not having to pay for it, it still sucks because I still can't watch like I normally watch. So why would I want to do that, right? That's what the whole problem is. And that's what really sucks about all this. But either which way, listen, you know, it's money that I'm getting to use, and I'll have that for later on. Because I'm telling you, man, once the movie theaters come back, I'm going to be roaring back to the movie theaters, man. I'm going to go back and support my local movie theater because I love my media. Now, so most U.S. and Canadian exhibitors began closing down March 16th. That's when Regal closed down. That's when AMC closed down. At the same point in time, they could remain shuttered until early June. So, yeah, 2.5 more months probably is what we're looking at. This occurred in tandem as major studios began removing their event films from the spring schedule. As we know so far, MGM's No Time to Die, Disney's Mulan, and Black Widow, all more pulling out of the release dates. So everybody's pushing back. You know, Fast 9 pushed to next year. Now, they go into much more detail about things. Now, here's about the streaming media part, which is interesting. So, with no surprise, there's a substantial increase in at-home entertainment consumption during the early part of the pandemic. So, 85% of the polled respondents approximately said their at-home TV and movie consumption had increased to some degree, with almost half stating their consumption grew by 50% or more. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You know, it has increased, but some people have gone to 50% or more, and those are the ones that probably don't have work right now. That's unfortunate, but that's what they're going to do. Ad-free subscription streaming services like Netflix, Disney Plus, and HBO Now saw by far the biggest gains in consumption at 80% following the outbreak. Respondents streaming the streaming services, they also signed up for the most were Disney Plus and Hulu at 29% and 21% respectively. Close to half said they were purchasing movies on demand from digital providers like Amazon, YouTube, and Apple iTunes. And that's what's good. Well, listen, the movie on demand environment, you know, wasn't that long ago we didn't have available on internet, but now we do. So digital on demand's there and people can catch it, and that's not a bad thing. Now, following the outbreak, traditional broadcast and cable TV saw the biggest dip in consumption among the at-home entertainment mediums when compared to on-demand movies from cable providers, on-demand movies from digital providers, ad-supported streaming, and ad-free streaming services. Another takeaway is that TV advertisers and how they should handle the COVID-19 crisis. 45% TV ads do not need to address the crisis. 42% felt that some advertising should be changed to be more sensitive to the virus impact. That's interesting. That's very interesting they would say that. But yeah, I'm in the part where I don't need to be addressing the crisis at every moment because some channels and some news programs, that's all they do. And so ad-free is going to be the option people want. If they're going to see advertising at all, then don't do it so much. Like, really, try to avoid it. And that I can understand. Like, honestly, you're seeing a lot of ads now for any food service that's delivered or car services or, you know, insurance or whatever there is. Some that are just regular commercials that can still run even though this is going on. So it's very interesting about that. All right. The other part with the movies I want to talk about is how the theaters could face big trouble with low attendance once they reopen. So as we mentioned, some people are willing to come back, but how many are going to come back? And how are we going to have the money, honestly, after this economy? Are we going to get a stimulation of the economy to the point where a couple different things happen? Now, I know that some people, if you're watching the news, you're going to get some people within a certain income bracket under $100,000 a year. And even people under Social Security are going to be getting a check, which is supposed to help stimulate the economy. Now, the only thing is there are certain things you can only buy with that money at this moment if you need to do something right now. If it's for expenses like paying for rent or paying for expenses, your everyday expenses, that's where it's going to go to first, right? So discretionary spending. Well, you can't go to the movies. And if we're waiting 2 months plus for the movies to come back, let's talk about that. MovieWeb reports that even when the theaters reopen, things may not be returning to normal. So there's a new survey. Now, that's the same survey we talked about that they're bringing up here from EDO. So here's the other issues that did not come up from the survey. So the issue now changing in some ways is an increasing number of recent theatrical releases, as well as some that never made it to theaters, going release early to premium digitally rental or purchase. So the thing is, we're wondering how things did. Movies like The Invisible Man have performed well, and it could encourage studios to maintain a premium digital model for certain releases, even after movie theaters are back up and running. A major change such as AMC have argued against for years, but now the floodgates have opened and may be too little too late. You might not be able to turn this back around. It's very unfortunate right now because we don't have box. We got shut down as of March 17th. So there's no more reporting of box office. And there's no reporting of the streaming numbers. So we don't know what kind of money these movies are making back. But according to what this report said, Invisible Man apparently was making money back on what they're doing. So we don't know yet. And that's what sucks. So if theater attendance does see a major dip, as the number suggests, it could be ultimately impact the way movies are produced, what types of movies are made, and certain studios could even fold if the money isn't there. And with declining physical media sales, the secondary market hasn't been as impactful as it used to be. So box office is where the money's made the majority of their money, and they don't have it right now. They're going to have a full, roughly, it could be 3 months off from making any money in the box office. The box office could be shut down for a good 90 days. And we're in the middle of it right now. And it's a long way from June, tell you what. Situation is evolving rapidly, impossible to predict, but a general fear of public gatherings coupled with modern convenience with streaming media could be a near fatal blow to the theatrical exhibition business as we know it. So, but what has to happen is, and this is what's got to be known as, what we have to hope for is there are enough movies that are being pushed back. And this is where the movie studios need to be smart about this. They need to actually plan themselves out and be flexible of their releases. Okay? They can go promote movies and do things all they want right now to promote. Without the press junkets and all the other appearances they normally do. I think what you got to do is you need to go ahead and cram some movies up. I think releases don't need to be spread out so much. What needs to happen for the good of the movie industry, the studios need to go ahead and keep an eye on what's happening. And then roughly take yourself 30 days after what's going on, when you see a significant amount of people back out in public able to go ahead and live a normal life. Maybe that's in a month. Maybe that's in 2 months. We don't know. But studios need to do their best to be ready. You already have the promotional money into the place. You could go ahead and buy airtime, I'm pretty sure, from a lot of different places, because there's probably some replenishing that needs to be done for all these different movies. The thing is, you need to put money back in to get the money back on those movies. So what has to happen is, and that's the whole point. This is why, in one case, the movies are going to have to come back to the theaters because that's the only way they make the money. And to make people come back for the movies, the big blockbusters have to come back as soon as this subsides. As soon as we get past the curve and we are moving away from COVID-19 and the coronavirus, the CCP virus, whatever you want to call it, Wuhan virus, once this is over, 30 days after we get back from this, is when movies need to start coming back. So make the summer, if the summer's going to be if you want to make it, Labor Day weekend, Maybe that's what you do. You start cramming September, October, November. You cram the movies all in there. You make it where every week is back to back to back to back. And just make sure you got a couple of blockbusters every week. That's going to make it impossible and irresistible for people to stay away from the movie theaters. Especially because those movies will not be made available over to streaming media, because those companies that are smart should not go premium digital. It's not the way to go. I don't think it's the smart move at all. If they want to kind of make the kind of money they're making, they're going to have to do that. For them to keep the budgets they're trying to make, they have to do that as well. So what you do is you make Black Widow, you make, No Time to Die. You make certain movies, get them back on board and get them ready to go. Start stacking them up at the end, for the third quarter of the year, fourth quarter of the year. Stack it up all the way. And you know what you do too? January, February do not become popcorn movie months. January, February, you stack the theaters again. You stack them. You need to change the timeline of when the movies come out, because you need to be able to make it where the movie theater releases are coming out, and you're moving them at times that are not normally conducive. But I think if you create a rush for people to go back to the movies, that's going to be the one place I think people will feel comfortable of going back to again. The movie theaters, keep yourself sanitized, keep yourself clean. Do what you got to do in the new normal to make sure that people feel comfortable coming back. And then just start laying it on, man. You just start laying on a lot of, times out there. Make it so people can watch all these movies. You want to keep some social distancing, keep people split between seats, do that. Whatever you got to do. But for the good of the movie theaters, for the good of the movie industry, people like the movies. They want to see this continue. What you got to do is you have to really put a big momentum push by having the movies released at a certain time and just keep it stacked across the board. Now, I understand part of that's not going to be possible because of the movie strikes. The talent labor union stuff. That could be another issue. But for the good of the business, people need to be able to say, okay, we got to get ourselves back into business. We got to get these movies out here. We're going to stack them up all the way. Don't even worry about Oscar season. Push it off, man. Get yourself in here so that January, February, March are tremendous movie months. You don't put out stinkers next year. You put out nothing but the best, because you're going to have so many left over. Just push them back and just stack them up. Stack them up and make it where people, and honestly, the movie theaters for themselves, you got to bring down some prices. I think some of your concessions, you got to don't bring your prices all together. You don't have to, but make your subscriptions a little bit easier. I think the subscription idea would be a good idea to keep it where people can go on a regular basis. Get that promoted out there more. Get that more common, more available, more accessible. You need to push those programs hard when people come back. Get them back into the mood of coming out. Hey, you're going to be comfortable. You're going to be cozy, just like you are at home at the theater. You got to make that possible, because that's a weekly trend you want to get people back into. And what you do is you make deals and concessions. You don't have to bring your prices down, but you got to make some deals and concessions. Free drinks, free popcorn, whatever you're going to do, you start banking on that. Start putting in some things like that. The rewards points at the moment might not cut it too much, but if you're going to add some more rewards points, make people cash in them, whatever you're going to do. If you got to replenish rewards points, do that too. That's actually even better. Add rewards points into all these different accounts of people that you know are going to go to the movies. Get them itching to come back, because most importantly, people are going to be itching to leave the house as soon as they can when it's safe. And when it is, they need to get themselves back out there. I'm telling you, that's what you got to do. The movies can survive. They just got to think about that. Now, in terms of the movies, we see movies that are starting to move back over now. So Top Gun Maverick, the Tom Cruise sequel to Top Gun, will be moving from June 24th to December 23rd, 2020. It will be a Christmas movie. Interesting. So, great time for the movie, man. Wow. I'll tell you what. So, that Christmas weekend, at this point, you have no superhero movie, no Star Wars movie. So Christmas Day weekend releases will include Tom and Jerry from Warner Brothers. Wonder if it's I'm guessing that's a live action or animated. I'm not sure. Sony's Fanning Sisters World War II drama, The Nightingale. Okay, I'll say that again. Let's see. Universal's News of the World. And then you have December 18th is Disney's West Side Story. Wow. Lionsgate's American Underdog. Well, West Side Story better not be Cats like they did the year last year. American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story. Warner Brothers Legendary's Dune. Oh, they're doing this again. Oh, my God. And then Christmas weekend, Paramount's coming to America, too. Wow. There's a lot of stuff to go on. A lot of movies to see. The SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, will debut July 31st instead of Memorial Day weekend. And the movie puts an event film on that release date after Sony Marvel's Morbius has left Memorial Day weekend for March 19th, 2021. So I don't think nobody's planning for Memorial Day weekend. They're all thinking, you know what? Mid-June is where everybody's going to come back. Everybody's kind of like planning on that, which is fine. At least there's something there. Quiet Place 2 was supposed to go out March 20th. Well, it's now being pushed for September 4th, Labor Day weekend. Now, usually they say it's typically the deadest period ever for movie going as people can head back to school. Studios and theaters are betting that movie going explodes later this summer rather than sooner because Wonder Woman will be coming out August 14th. And they think that after that, Quiet Place will get people to still keep going after all said and done. And then another horror movie coming out is The Conjuring from Stephen King. That'll come out September 11th now. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Sorry, not Stephen King. It's just the movie The Conjuring. It's another Conjuring in another series of the Conjuring universe. So the she's unveiled Thursday cuts far deeper in the December calendar with an unexpected date when exhibition will reopen on full blast. AMC is hoping to reopen early June. New York City, repping more than half of the entire state, they're in the worst spot. That's really a big spot for all these people to have. In order to have tent poles earning their maximum, films need to have New York and Los Angeles online because they represent a great percentage of the weekend ticket sales for all those pictures. So, most important, you also have the time when New York and Los Angeles can have premieres. When movies are available for everybody to go to New York and LA to go catch the movies. So, yeah, if you're in Hollywood, you got to be able to see it in Hollywood cinema. That makes sense. Now, one question that's interesting to me, what will theaters do for product if this crisis clears up earlier? According to Deadline, they said that many titles are flexible for all studios and can always be pulled up to an earlier opening should the nation's marketplace improve. And most of these titles remain in post-production. Many are expecting that when theaters do reopen, it will take some time for audiences to come back. Winter holdover titles and catalog movies are expected to be on marquees. As we've also written for movies to come back, live televised sporting events also have to return, as well as the major studios hit their mailed demos with ads during that time. So what remains on the schedule? With all theaters closed, Trolls World Tour is expected to be largely available for on-demand rental next weekend. STX is yet to redate the family comedy My Spy, which is the movie with Dave Bautista that was supposed to come out the following week. Actually, it was supposed to be March 13th, but they pushed it back. They just pushed it off. The rest of the summer, we have, at the moment, there is one movie for Memorial Day weekend as Artemis Fowl from Disney. And then there's movies coming back June 12th. Candyman is scheduled for Universal for June 12th. Then you got King of Staten Island, Fatale, Soul, Free Guy, Bob's Burgers gets a movie on July 17th. Tenet comes out July 17th. Jungle Cruise, that's Emily Blunt and Dwayne The Rock Johnson come play. SpongeBob, like I said, it's on July 31st. Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar. And that's what we're looking at. So, there will be a limited summer release schedule, what it looks like. All interesting stuff right there. And by the way, any of these stories you want to catch that I talk about, I always post them ahead at my Facebook page, facebook.com/King of Podcasts. Facebook.com/King of Podcasts. And if you don't look for any of these stories I talk about here on the show, you can always find them at broadcasterspodcast.com. It's always in the show description of every show. That's where I always put them there. And they're hyperlinks, so you can actually go ahead and click through and check them out for yourself. So a good place to go if you want to find out the news of the week. I always report it right there, and I bring it to you right here on the show. All right, let's move along to radio and music, because there's a lot of issues where people are feeling the furloughs. So media has felt it. iHeartMedia has furloughed its employees. CEO Bob Pittman has given up his $1.5 million salary for the remainder of 2021, according to music business worldwide. But here is one thing that's not being said. Oh, Bob Pittman, how nice of you to give up your salary. But here's what's going on with that. People don't want to talk about this, but here we go. So now, for iHeartMedia employees, they have furloughed an undisclosed number of employees with no pay for 90 days. So according to the FCC filings, iHeartMedia, Bob Pittman now receives a base salary of $1.5 million a year since he signed a new deal last May. But he can also earn an annual bonus of $3.4 million, depending on the achievement of reasonable performance goals set in good faith. And I forget who, Chief Financial Officer Rich Bressler has a similar deal. The exact same deal, as a matter of fact. So this also follows last week's announcement that iHeart is withdrawing its full year 2020 financial guidance provided on its quarter 4 earnings call due to unheightened certainty due to the pandemic. So they basically said the pandemic's going to hurt their fund. They're going to hurt themselves. So they're going to just basically just push off. And they're all worried because, people are not talking about the fact that, these radio companies could hurt. I brought that up last week. They could definitely hurt. So now here they are. They're already how quick are they to go ahead and give up on their employees? Yeah, no pay for 90 days. And I don't see anything showing that they're going to be doing anything in terms of insurance or in terms of any kind of help for these people. They're just going to hope that the government helps them out. Just like the government has to bail out iHeartMedia, they're going to do the same thing. It's unfortunate. To maintain maximum financial flexibility, we have withdrawn $350 million on our $450 million senior secured asset band revolving credit facility. I think I brought this up last week. But yeah, there's that part, and that's what's going on there. Jeez. Pitiful. Entercom is also making layoffs, furloughs, and pay cuts for employees. Here's a story from Radio Insight. So beyond the people that will be exiting or furloughed, of whose numbers have not been disclosed, the company is suspending its stock dividends and 401k matching and implementing salary reductions in the second quarter between 10 and 20% for any employees with a salary above $50,000 a year. David Field, the CEO, is going to take a 30% pay cut. So there's a lot of names that are exiting the company, and there we go. And it's unfortunate. It's just a long list. It's just sad to see that. But it's what's going on right now. Some of these companies, even though they're going to try to get some kind of relief that's coming from the federal government or from the private sector, from the Federal Reserve anyway, in the form of either $4 trillion is coming from the Federal Reserve and funds that are being injected into the economy, or $2 trillion that came from the latest stimulus bill from the federal government that Congress passed last week. Let's move along now to music. This is interesting right here. New podcast listeners. There's a lot of podcast stories. Let's talk about this real quick. From Forbes.com, new podcast listeners are coming from radio, not music. So podcasts share increased at the expense of music a couple of years ago, but has held steady ever since. Instead, the rising number of podcast listeners are coming from AM/FM radio. So yes, people are dropping off of AM/FM radio, terrestrial radio, in favor of podcasting. That's a very interesting point that they said. The amount of time people spend per week listening to podcasts has not changed. It remains flat. 6.5 hours a week per week since 2018. The share of percentage of audio listening to spoken word content as opposed to music jumped 20 to 24% since 2014. And 20 to 24% of that is podcasts. Most of it is AM/FM radio or other. And podcasts have more than doubled since 2014, but they're only 17% of all spoken word audio listening. So there's more stats behind that, but of course the story is available for you to go and check out for yourself there. Just thought it was interesting. Another one is the report that our Americans are listening more to podcasts. So iHeartMedia put out an update talking about how Americans are consuming a vast array of podcasts as they stay at home and practice social distancing during COVID-19. So they're seeing increased podcast listenership, especially in markets with stay-at-home orders. And Americans are specifically turning to podcasts covering business, finance, education, and entertainment, including shows from several iHeart personalities, including versus true crime podcast listening, which has seen a slight decline. So across its more than 350 podcasts, listenership is up 6% month to month as more Americans are staying at home. Even higher in markets where governors announced shelter-in-place orders, 13% in California, 8% in New York State, in just 1 week. Conal Byrne, president of iHeart Podcast Network, said this, quote, broadcast radio has long served as a trusted voice of local communities during times of crisis and uncertainty, and now podcasts are also playing an integral role as a much-needed companion for millions of Americans. There we go. Interesting stat they're going to put in there, but yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how much weight I put to iHeartMedia putting out their own stats, but okay, they're at least saying there's an increase. Well, that's good. Now, what are people consuming when it comes to music or when it comes to video or media streaming? Music streaming is taking a backseat to Netflix, and audio's decline is leveling off. So there's a new study from Billboard that has shed additional light on coronavirus prompted music. So first of all, it appears that the widespread disruption to America's normal way of life, schools and not a few businesses have closed indefinitely. We know about that. So Billboard says that videos have experienced a 3.7% viewership uptick through the last week, in addition to a 6.9% increase the last 7 days. So the first quarter of 2020 has seen a 28% jump in video streaming. So people are watching YouTube videos a lot, compared to the same period in 2019. Audio streams declined by 3.2% in the same week. So the drop is positive, as the previous week brought a staggering 9% reduction overall music streaming. But then again, there hasn't been a lot of good music, or not a lot of, there's been some albums that have come out that have really would put people on board to listening to music, but we haven't had a lot of major releases. The Weeknd just came out with a release last week. We had a couple of rappers come out with releases before. Halsey came out with a release. Or no, Halsey's releases. Yeah, it did come out, right? Dua Lipa's new album, Future Nostalgia, is coming out now. That's going to put an injection of streaming into the business. But The Weeknd and Dua Lipa should help out a lot. Justin Bieber put out an album earlier this year. That didn't make a whole lot of jump. Little Uzi Vert put out an album. That didn't make much of a jump either. So, there's some things out there that they haven't done much with, and that's just where they are right now. So, last week, the world's leading music streaming service, Spotify, said it would take several steps, including matching $10 million in COVID-19 relief donations to aid people suffering financially and otherwise, comes against calls for the streaming platform to multiple its per-stream royalty rate, though few expect any substantive changes on that front. Interesting story there. Another furlough of employees, I should want to bring this up as well. Disney furloughed employees. That was the big story that happened today as I record the show. Or actually, it happened yesterday. But yes, the difficult decision to furlough employees. Actually, this was today. It's now Friday morning as I record this. This was Thursday afternoon. So at the moment, employees are being furloughed whose jobs aren't necessary at this time after April 18th due to the economic hit. So no specification on the number of employees or divisions, but the understanding is the furlough process started with the Parks Division and that other lines of businesses are still in the process of determining necessary furloughs. So now, those impacted by furloughs who will remain Disney employees throughout the duration of the furlough period receive full health care benefits, and Disney also picking up the cost of employee and company premiums. Parks, Experiences, and Products said the furlough would apply to executive, salaried, and non-union hourly cast members based in the U.S., with the exception of those whose roles or projects are crucial to maintaining operations during this closure period. That's a big hit right there for folks. That's really unfortunate, but what are you going to do? Executive Chairman Bob Iger said he would forego his salary completely. CEO Bob Chapek will see his cut by 50%. The Senior Vice Presidents, and EVPs will all reduce their compensation by between 20 and 30%. And that's where we are right now. And then here's the reason why. And because of all these furloughs, that is thus the increase that we have, where as of today, the week ending March 28th, the unemployment claims by the Department of Labor were reported to be $6.65 million, 6.65 million people. The week before, 3.307. So these furloughs are all being incorporated to it. So that is the impact we're going to get from this right here. So everybody's waiting to find out what's going to happen, man. That's really what's going to be tough. So let's see how it all works out. In the middle of all this, Apple's not without being struck in things. iTunes is being accused of running a massive piracy operation and a major songwriter lawsuit. This is going on everything else going on. This sucks, but here we go. Here's what's happening. An array of allegedly unlicensed greatest hits albums comprising thousands of songs organized by year were cited in the following. That Apple and Adamson have gone year by year and released multiple compilations per year, comprised of pirated copies of virtually every prominent recording from the 1940s to the 1960s. And the estates and music companies laid claim to some of the most successful songs in the 1900s, alleging they suffered financially because of the ostensibly illegal reproductions. So Apple, they're saying, has sold bootleg music to the iTunes store, often at a lower price than the official legitimate versions of the songs. That's a big deal. We'll keep an eye on that, see what else comes up from that after all said and done. That's not good news at all. So here's a little more positive news. For music people, for content creators, Hypebot.com reports that 30,000 new creators launched on Patreon in the first 3 weeks of March, all because of the pandemic. So creators have expanded their earnings on Patreon during this time period by two factors. Patreon acquisition. Usually a large number of fans are subscribing to creators on Patreon. And retention, we're seeing more pledge deletion, but not nearly enough to offset the increasing numbers of new pledges. So there you go. Now, in terms of numbers, average new patron growth across the U.S., UK, Canada, and Germany, and Australia, and Italy, up 36.2% from the previous month. So fans are turning to Patreon to support creators during this tough time. That's a really cool thing to see. And we're going to see a lot of stuff like that coming up as well. That's going to be interesting to see. We talked about the ratings going up, and we're seeing ratings going up and surging right now. People are watching much more television, trying to get the escape. So news programs, daytime game shows are getting a surge of viewers in millions. So CBS, Fox News, MSNBC all had viewership spikes. Fox News leading with 2.35 million viewers. Fox News with 4.25 million viewers. That's a big increase. MSNBC 2.35, CNN 2.16. So there you go. World News Tonight on ABC. The evening news from ABC with David Muir is getting now 11.9 million viewers just last week. Lester Holt, 11 million viewers. CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell, 7.4 million viewers. Look at that. You're talking about almost 30 million people. So a tenth of the U.S. population is watching evening news again. That is amazing. But people are really caught up on it. Other things, game shows. So Let's Make a Deal and Price is Right on CBS have seen their numbers soar. So Let's Make a Deal, hosted by Wayne Brady, had the most viewers since it rebooted 11 years ago. Price is Right, also seeing more people tune in, and the popular game show, it's amazing. Highest audience numbers in 4 years. That is amazing. And that's where we're at right now. People are watching news, they're watching game shows, they're just finding, just either getting informed or trying to be entertained with something that's really light and fun and just makes you smile. You're very interesting about that. One other thing I thought was actually kind of interesting, with fewer commuters on the road, SiriusXM has now offered free streaming now through May 15th. So if you want to watch or listen to Howard Stern, you can now listen to his channel 100, from home. And you can watch him at home doing his show, which is quite interesting. So the CEO of SiriusXM, Jim Meyer, said, with so many people asked to stay at home, quote, we're making our full streaming lineup of music, entertainment, and news and information easily accessible to everyone. Well, of course, this is just to get people to go ahead and listen to it. If they're going to be home, they're going to have time to consume it and see if they want to go ahead and buy a subscription and bring it on back. So we'll see how that works out. So there's all the news I thought was worth to go ahead and tell to you tonight. We're going to leave it there. Time now to go ahead and move on to part 2 of my interview with Jared Easley. Again, he's co-founder and head of community and content of the podcast movement. Met him back at the South Florida Podcasters Meetup, which was something he organized back around 2016, 2017. And I caught up with him. He was one of the first people I talked to during this coronavirus pandemic, just shooting the breeze and talking about what's going on. He gives the latest information about the podcast movement coming up here in this part of the interview. Stay tuned for that. And here's part 2 of my interview with Jared Easley here on the Broadcasters Podcast. Enjoy. I'm going to talk with Jared Easley. He's, again, the co-founder and head of community and content for the podcast movement. I want to ask about that and get into the conference stuff with you, Jared. So podcast movement is slated currently to be in Dallas, Texas, August 5th through August 8th. At the moment, can you tell me, is the status of the event still active? Are you still taking registrations? What's the status of the show?
Yes, we are still taking registrations and have every intention of following through and successfully doing the event, assuming it's safe to do so. We're definitely paying attention to all the things that are going on and in close communication with the venue and with the city of Dallas. And our main office is actually in Dallas, Texas, so we have kind of boots on the ground and keeping abreast of everything that's going on locally. And so, hopefully things are better in a few months and we're in a position to continue and do the event. However, no one can see the future. And if that's not the case, we will absolutely cancel, assuming, that it's not safe to have the event. We will cancel and refund anyone that's purchased tickets. And that's a hit to the business. And we just already, kind of had a number of meetings and discussions on what that'll be like and what adjustments are necessary if we have to make that decision. And I think we would certainly survive it, but it would, certainly, our biggest form of revenue for the year is through that event. And so
I would hope it's going to be okay, because I think the fact of the matter is with this the coronavirus. First of all, you're going to be doing it in August. It's going to be the hot, dead summer right there. I would imagine flu season will be done, obviously, by that point. And I think, you might – I would also think that, if trying to go ahead and continue things, I think for anybody that's trying to do any kind of events, probably going into June or July, probably a better chance of making it happen. So, I agree with you that, continue to monitor. But I think there's a chance that you can still go. For us, one of the events that we do with my full-time at Cannabis Radio is the United States Cannabis Conference and Expo. And unfortunately, that's why I never got to go to podcast. It's always on the same weekend as you guys, so I won't get a chance to go. But I think at the moment we're still locked in to do our event as well. But we are doing virtual. Now, has there been any thoughts? Have you looked into any ideas where virtual might be an option? Just, to see if that would be something that people might be interested in. Obviously, being in the podcasting environment, it could be.
If we cancel the in-person event, we will end up doing something that is virtual. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I will say this. In the past, this was probably 2014, we did a virtual summit, which is like a conference, but just virtual. And we tested that out, and we've done it before, so it wouldn't be our first rodeo. I'll put it that way. We've not made it an annual event. We just did it a one-time thing. And we decided at that point our audience wasn't quite big enough to kind of see the benefits that we were looking for or wanting to achieve at that time. Now, that being said, if we cancel the event and it's not safe to do it, we would put together something virtually, and I'm sure it would still be good. But there's nothing quite like that in person. And of course, safety's the primary thing. So assuming that is the case and people are better and it's okay to travel and it's not a problem, then we intend to move forward and hopefully people and it'll still be a good experience.
Yeah.
And so, we're optimistic because it is still several months away, but at the same time, we're not naive either. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we're, in the meantime, we are taking registrations, and I'm writing a newsletter tomorrow. And in that newsletter, I'm going to talk about one of the contingency promos that we're doing for people that are on the fence. So.
And if people want to be a part of that and also want to go and register and everything will cross our fingers, everything will be good. Podcastmovement.com. Make sure to go like that. Now, I want to talk about one of your previous shows. Back in February, you had the Podcast Movement Evolutions Conference in Los Angeles.
Yes.
So I mentioned, so I have talked extensively about the iHeartMedia CEO, Bob Pittman. Look, I'm not going to go into a long diatribe because, listen, I have my bones to pick with him, but that's just because of the fact that, listen, and I'll just say it real quick. I don't like the fact that this guy has taken this company, and I'm not saying it's just completely him, but this is a company that's owned under private equity for a number of years. The Mays family dumped it off. They grew this so big, and radio at the time, they just bought all these stations. I think they just paid way too much for what they did. They decided to go and corporatize and really micromanage everything. And Bob Pittman, under his leadership, has done that continuously across. Now, to his credit, the iHeartRadio app has been very successful. They have a great product in that. Their features in terms of their music, their podcasting has been great. I just think that, they haven't done great with the radio content, the terrestrial radio content, trying to create different pipelines of revenue. It's more of making money than it is creating great content. But, Bob was, if I'm correct, he was in a keynote conversation at the conference, or I know he spoke there. He said this, quote, "I think the sky is the limit for podcasting. Quote, as an industry, we need to keep investing in it so it can reach its full potential." So now, what do you think about the corporate influence of podcasting in the space? Because for me, the investment is fine. We'll take the money, but don't control the content and don't make something that people don't want to listen to.
Yeah, I think that's one of the beautiful things about podcasting is I don't see this changing ever, but podcasting, as you've already put it, is available for anyone to do, and there is no red tape. You can create a podcast and you can put it out there. And because of that, it's wonderful to see someone like iHeart be jumping in and being so serious and proactive about podcasting, because if anything, that just brings more visibility to the media, to the form of media and podcasting. So for me, I do understand where you're coming from, but I have hope, just as I think every other podcaster should have hope, is just because a particular identity or organization is getting involved doesn't mean that they control the whole thing. They might control various aspects if you're on their app, for example, or if your show is being distributed through them. But other than that, podcasting is still, anyone's opportunity. And because of that, no one controls what you say or what you do or when you do it. And my personal podcast, I had not put out an episode since December just because I got busy, and then, everything happened. But then I put out an episode, in March, and that's completely okay in podcasting. There's no one to frown on you. I mean, there's the argument of, okay, if you're not consistent, that could be a bad thing. But podcasting is, freedom. It allows you to put something out if you want to or not. And so I love that about podcasting, and I've given myself that full freedom. Okay, if I don't put out a show every week, that's all right. I'm going to try my best and do it when I can, but if I can't, I'm not going to beat myself up or feel like I'm a bad podcaster. I'll continue to put out shows as I can do it, and I love it, and that's why I do it.
Yeah. Now, okay, so I will say this. There are certain people that have come from the corporate world that have done pretty well, not exceptionally well, I'll say, in the space. Norm Pattis, coming from Westwood One to create podcasts. Well, I like what he's done. I can't knock for what he's done that. And when I think about NPR coming into the space, they've done good content. Obviously, people listen to it a lot. And I think for NPR, what they learned about this is that's whatever happens to their funding or the donations they get for member support, I think podcasting is where they can thrive Honestly, I think that's where people, I think, are listening to their content. They put out a good app. They're just doing a better job there. I don't think they need all these towers and all these frequencies. I think if they want to just go to a podcast model, you could definitely do that. And then just create your news division into something else and just, find a way to get to that. I just think that they're serving better in that space than they would, with PBS on television or with NPR on traditional radio. I think for me, because then what you could do is terrestrial radio can then be opened up to more local broadcasters. And then just like podcasting, that local grassroots field can grow. Because if people have the money and the wherewithal to buy a station and put whatever content they think would be for the community, then let the airwaves go back to the public. Podcasting should be in the same way in the public interest. And people shouldn't be able to have the opportunity to do that. So I'm always a little bit fearful when I see certain people in the space. I'm not knocking Bob Pittman as integrity. Listen, this is the guy that was instrumental for MTV, and he's done a lot of good work in his time. But it's just that in this role, I've been contentious about it. I have been very vocal about it. I'll just say that.
Sure.
That's where I'm coming from. Now, at the NAB show last August, I also railed about this. I put a video up on about when I'm not podcasting, youtube.com/jbrasco951, JBRASCO951. He said this, and this got me off to another level. He said podcasting is radio's birthright. Okay, Bob. All right. You pissed me off something. I was scorched earth when I heard that. I'm like, you do not come into this space and say that you're coming in because you think radio knows. No. There are great radio people that know what they're doing in podcasting. That's the truth. And I commend those people coming into the space and learning and being able to adjust into the space and, taking their ego and taking their reputation at the door and checking it and saying, okay, this is a new space. I need to do better for my audience and really put out great content. Okay, good. But he said this as well, quote, TV made a terrible mistake, Netflix. They let that model become another business they did not own. For radio, that's podcasting. Yes, it's a disruptive model. Correct. You're absolutely right. In podcasting, quote, it's not about the content, it's about the host. Well, I'm probably going to disagree. I think it's the content and the host that make the both. Back to him. He says, like radio, it's a companionship. All of us should be doing podcasts, big or small. It is a gateway to advertisers. So I'm going to step out of it. What do you think about his statement and his comments?
Well, with great respect to Mr. Pittman, I don't necessarily. If radio people, broadcast backgrounds, want to say that podcasting is a broadcast birthright, that's their opinion. I don't agree with it.
Right.
And they don't. At the end of the day, they don't control it. They can control pieces of it, but they can't control it overall. And for someone like yourself to have any kind of concern about that, I would say you don't have to have concern because you own your show, you own your feed, you have the ability to market it and to promote it, and they don't have any say so in any of that. So. Unless you're promoting it through their app or whatever. So I kind of understand where he's coming from, and but at the same time, for the independent person like myself and I don't really see it as a negative. I see it as more visibility to podcasting in general when these bigger organizations and these bigger identities are involved. And I think overall that's probably and likely good for podcasting. But I don't see anyone that can just step in and say, okay, Jorge, you can no longer do your show unless you abide by ABC. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think, it's democratized. We can do it unless, God forbid, our great nation of ours is no longer, free for some reason. I think then, you could potentially podcast in another country, but you can podcast. You're gonna be able to podcast, and you're gonna be able to talk about what you want, and no one's gonna be able to tell you otherwise. And I don't really see that changing. I'm hoping that never changes, but I don't believe it will. So I hear your frustration when people make those types of claims and those types of comments, and whether I agree with them or not is. I still think that podcasting is going to benefit from these different identities and these organizations that are getting involved, and that will ultimately be to the benefit of the podcaster who is being creative, who is being innovative, and who is listening to their audience, and who is being community minded, and all those things, that they'll see opportunities and they'll have growth because of those things. And various identities, like you named, like iHeart, they won't have any control over that.
And don't get me wrong, I appreciate. And for me, I'm really trying to instill a certain philosophy: be more constructive, less critical. So with my criticism, I have been constructive in saying, I mean, first of all, iHeartMedia has all the greatest, like, top 40 radio stations in the country, almost all of them. They control the market there. They control the market on different music formats. And if you wanted to nationalize those formats and get your music radio content with lower loads of ad inventory, I think there's a way to go and make that where people would be a little more ingesting the product. You could do that and put the best people out there to go and host shows, and then you create time for local content. I mean, they do that over in the overseas. I mean, we see what BBC does. They do great content and podcasts as well. And that's a government-owned entity. CBC the same way. They know what they're doing. We don't get that over here. So, like, I can understand if you have you want to take you want to take a good portion of the market share, go right ahead. Hey, I'm all about capitalism and I'm all about free market. Podcasting should be the same way, but everybody gets a chance to get a piece of the pie. Everybody gets a chance. For me, I just think you could be doing more, instead of just trying to jump into podcasting or just trying to get your content out there through a digital device. How about working on the models that actually have been around for almost a century? Work on that. My God, I wish I had the time to go and work on the models here. And I think you could do it. Well, even if you're micromanaging. Okay, so you can't have people at every station. You can't afford the staff or the overhead. But there's a thing you could do where, okay, the open studio rule, the FCC, they cut that rule down, the main studio rule. That's been gone. Okay, so then consolidate. Make everything a syndicated format. Everybody runs, and there's certain stations that'll be able to run whatever it is. And yeah, if you don't want to go local, then just be honest about that. And then there are other stations you could unload and sell and let those people be the arbiters of local content. Like, I would rather have that kind of world than them just saying, okay, it's our birthright to come into this space and just do what we want. No, you get to be a part of the greatness of podcasting, but you're not going to control it and you're not going to be overtaking it.
Can I share a couple stories with you, like of people that are really doing awesome stuff, and
Sure.
they're not in those big circles. One guy that comes to mind is a guy in Orlando or outside of Orlando. His name's Brian, and his family has a business that's HVAC, air conditioning, and all that. Mm-hmm. And he started a podcast about something that I would never be interested in, but it's about training for people in that specific space, and things like repair, whatever, just and an audio podcast talking about those things. And he wasn't sure if he'd have 10 listeners or no listeners or even more. And what happened was he just focused on being, as you've said, being real strategic with the content and the training, and he organically attracted people that were interested in that space or that work in that space. And it got to a point in a short amount of time, I mean, we're talking maybe a little over a year, where different companies that are trying to market to that specific community were buying ads on his podcast because there really was nowhere else for them to buy ads. Yeah. There was limited opportunity for them to get in front of that audience. And so, the last time I talked to him was several months ago, but he had said in the last year he had made just 6 figures in ad revenue on doing that specific type of podcast, and it's created all these new opportunities. And it to me, that's a testimonial of being niche, of being very specific, and finding an audience. And not, he didn't have to have any help from iHeart or any of these other bigger people. He just said, okay, this is what I do. This is the target. And so now he starts creating the show, and the word got out organically. Hey, check this out. And now that audience and that community is there, and they're not only enjoying that podcast, but his family business now gets some of the best hires from throughout the country. People want to relocate to Orlando to work for this business.
Wow.
because of this podcast. And we can chuckle at that and laugh at that, but that's another example of how something like podcasting is so powerful. It creates this relationship. It creates this connection. And my friend Donald Kelly, he started out as an inside sales rep for a corporation and just started reading all these books and learning all these things about sales. And eventually he broke away because he started a podcast, and he would just interview people that had a lot of experience in sales that would give advice for people that were new. And now he's created his own business that is sales training oriented. And so his podcast, although that didn't make all the money, he's had ads and different things on his podcast, but it created an opportunity for him to create a business model around sales training. And so now he does that full time. He doesn't work for this corporation anymore. He does that full time. And he might not be making $1 million or whatever, but he's doing a full time business that takes care of him and his wife and his son from the sales training things and the various things that they offer, products, services, whatever, that are marketed through this podcast. And that happened because of the podcast. And there's lots more examples of that. I could talk, another long. I could go long-winded about these.
I bet. You should write a book about it. As a matter of fact. Yeah, there you go.
It's pretty incredible, and it's not limited to just the middle-aged white male. It can be it's diverse. It's women. It's people of all ethnicities. It's all languages. More and more Spanish-speaking podcasts.
Back to the days of the South Florida Podcasters Meetup, you had a very diverse group of podcasters
that was so cool to see. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I loved it. It was, and honestly, what a great community to put that together. And I can only imagine what you get a podcast movement on a regular basis. But there you go. Now let me go and obviously, besides podcast movement, you're doing your podcast called Starve the Doubts, which you mentioned. I'll just make mention of what the show's about. You're interviewing individuals who have starved the doubts, moved into self-confidence, making their dreams, businesses, and passion a reality. So you said that show's coming back up. You've already started putting out new content?
Yeah, I had the last episode I'd put out before this recent one was end of December of last year, and then I got a little busy and I just didn't put one out. But
during the holidays, that's when you start packing up content. You can be. I'm just saying, I do this for a living. Evergreen content, my friend.
Yeah, I know. I'm in agreement with you 100%. I have my family and I have the business, the podcast movement business, and sometimes that takes it over. But I've given myself that freedom to say it's okay.
Yeah. And I get it
because mentally I can do that now. I can put out a show, and it's March. Where was I? January and February. But I put out a show, and I'm going to continue to put out shows, and I'm not going to ever stop my podcast. I'm going to continue doing it. I might have gaps and breaks, but I'm still going to do it because I love it.
Yeah.
So it's fun, and I hear from people. I got an email back probably in January where a guy was like, I went on an 8-hour road trip, and I listened to your podcast, the entire way. And I immediately thought, I can't even get my wife to listen to me for, 8 minutes, much less 8 hours. Like, you're crazy. But of course I didn't say that to him, but I just thought that was funny. Like, there are people that listen, and I'm becoming connected with people in Uganda and Singapore and in different places that find the show, and they listen to it. And they enjoy it, and then they learn about the people and the guests that I have on the show. And I've gotten emails from guests and be like, "Hey, I want you to know, because I was on your podcast, I connected with Stacy, and now Stacy's a client, or Stacy's
that's great."
And so I hear those things, and I think, okay, well, this is still relevant. This is still useful. It might not be thousands upon thousands of people that are listening, but that's okay. I mean, I like doing it. I want to do it,
and that's the whole point. It's a passion. For you, I see you've written a couple books. I want to just point out a couple: Podcasting Good to Great, How to Grow to Your Audience Through Collaboration. The other book is those other books you have. I saw there's a handful of them, but just wanted to point out too. And Stop Chasing Influencers, The True Path to Building Your Business and Living Your Dream. So I want to ask you about that second book. What is it about the fact that, I see influencers all the time. Well, it's more of something where they always use that word for Instagram people. But I also hear about the same where you're seeing the same thing in marketing when it comes to video content, or there might be some others that are out there that is that idea. But give me without I know we're going to have to send people to the book, but how do you basically kind of point out the fact that people shouldn't be looking to your peers, the people that you look at as role models of what you're doing in this space? Even if it is podcasting, why is it you just follow your own path?
Well, there's a difference in kind of examining different models of what works, and seeing what people do is different from just proactively trying to buy all their services and products to get on their radar to see if they can help you grow. I think that is something that is common, especially in the business and marketing world, as you'll see these faces, these gurus that have these products and services that are supposed to help your business if you're an independent business owner. And really, you're building their dream. You're not building your own. So that book was really intended to say, okay, instead of taking resources and focusing heavily on some of these people that are so high up the mountain they forgot what it's like to be where you are, take those resources and put that into your idea, your thing, work on you. I don't think it's wrong to get examples and get ideas from people that are further up the mountain. I think that's completely fine. But I think when you're wasting all your time, your resources trying to get on someone's radar or trying to invest in somebody because you think they're going to somehow reciprocate in some way, I think that's not really going to help you move the needle. So that's why that book was written. And there's a lot of relevant stuff in that book that if people read it, they'll get really good ideas and actionable tips on how they can grow their own influence. And I think that was the whole purpose. There's a contrarian title, but the purpose is really about what can you do, and here's some things that laid out in detail on things and ideas that you can do to implement and grow your own influence. And that was important, and it still is, and so that was the purpose of that book.
So is there a website where we can find all of where everything that you're working on, or are there any particular social media handles that we should follow along with what you're doing?
I think for now, I point people to Podcast Movement just because I'm so passionate about it and I love it, and we've been doing it since 2014, and it started as a crowdfunding opportunity. That's how Podcast Movement got started. We did a Kickstarter. And so now every year we've had events that, we get the hobbyist, the person that's doing it in their garage, and then we get the people that are working for Spotify and Apple. we get all types.
Oh, you get major companies. I can't believe
major companies that the major companies are represented, and that's I think a huge benefit is when you can walk into a conference and you could actually go meet these people and get on their radar. There's been a lot of success that's come from that. People that have been featured on Apple and different things because they met them at the conference. They got to know them. And those people are pretty gracious. They may seem like they're too far out of reach, but they're not at the conference. They're right there. And so, won't get too heavy on that, but I say podcastmovement.com. And then I'm pretty active now on LinkedIn. So if people want to look me up, Jared Easley on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you there. And more of the posts that I'm doing on LinkedIn is just about, podcasting industry stuff. It's anyone that's podcasting would likely find most of the articles interesting that I post on LinkedIn or that I'm sharing over there. I'm not actually writing the articles. I'm just curating stuff and sharing it. But I really enjoy connecting with people now on LinkedIn. It's something that I've actually spent a lot more time doing, and I enjoy it. So,
you get a lot of major speakers. Obviously the Todd Crocker's of the world, the Rob Greenlees, the Daniel G. Lewis's, the Dave Jacksons, all those types that are just real industry types in the space. And obviously all these different companies that are coming across, whether it's Libsyn or Spotify or Spreaker or what have you, they're all coming to the show. So obviously you have the big major show. And how many people do you usually show these shows every year now? Well,
we before the coronavirus, we were anticipating probably 3,000 for this Dallas event. That may or may not be true now, but for the first time we did Evolutions, the first time event, we had over 1,200 registered, and we were hoping for maybe 700. So I was really happy with that. But the event we had in Orlando was probably around 2,800.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's definitely an exciting thing, and when it's safe and we can do the event and you can check it out, I hope that people will. It's great.
One of the few industries that's actually still monetizing and making money in this unfortunate time. Hopefully all of us are hunkering down, listening to podcasts and enjoying ourselves, because Netflix is only going to give us so much. I'm just saying.
Nothing against Netflix, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, let me go get my Amazon tap, head to the pool, throw on a podcast or whatever. What I get to enjoy is what I look forward to. Jared Easley, co-founder and head of community and content of Podcast Movement. Hey, thanks for joining me here on the show, man. I really appreciate your time. And we had the time, I guess, obviously. I mean, what else are we going to do at this moment? I'm going to wait to hear this in a couple of months and say, okay, it was good to be able to do this at this time and, pass the word along. So thanks for making time, my friend.
I appreciate it, Jorge, and I hope when things are safe again, you and I can grab lunch and have a beverage and just catch up because we live so close. It's a shame not to hang out. So
I agree with that. Let's do that soon.
All right, my friend. Thank you again.
Very happy to have Jared Easley on the program. By the way, I did a little change with the change of the month of April. With the new time, I decided to go ahead and change the logo that I have for the show. Wasn't necessarily, I've always been like, I keep changing the show logo, and I've done some changes to things to try to make it look better. And some of the iterations I didn't really like, but I like what I did now. I changed the logo of the show. I'd love to get your feedback on it, see what you think. But I figured, put the, it's a little bit stereotypical, but I think it works for what it needs to do. The film slate, where you see all the little logos on there, it's nice and prominent, easy to read. I think it looks good. I hope you like it. And I also did some changes to the website, make it look a little bit better. But in the meantime, remember, go to kingofamazon.com. Kingofamazon.com. That's the best place that you can do to help out the show. Because any purchases you make through Amazon, all you got to do is just go to that link, kingofamazon.com. And then from there, you can go right into the page, order what you need from Amazon, and then I make a commission back on whatever you make, whatever you pay for that you need. And it's the easiest way to help out the show. Easiest way to help out yours truly, King of Podcasts. It's your way of showing that you love the show, what I'm doing, and I hope you'll tell more people to go and come on back. Remember, all my shows are available also on YouTube, youtube.com/JBRASCO951, or just search King of Podcasts on YouTube. There's a link also, a button I put up on the website, broadcasterspodcast.com. And remember, King of Podcasts, look through on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm all there. So we'll go ahead and call for a week. And I hope all of you are staying safe and hunkered down. And just be careful out there. I wish all of you happiness and health. Be well. Remember, content is king. And the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast, presented by BroadcastersPodcast.com and KingofPodcasts.com. The Broadcasters Podcast is brought to you by KingofPodcasts.com/Amazon. If Amazon is good enough for the King of Podcasts, it most certainly is good for you. KingofPodcasts.com/Amazon. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program. The Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at KingofPodcasts.com.